New York is home to some of the world's most beautiful skyscrapers. This is a city that knows how to create buildings that are revered around the world. Or at least, it was. Easier to develop, build and replace, these glass buildings have taken over a large swathe of the New York skyline. Together, they're synonymous with the glittering modernity of New York City, the backdrop for countless famous films and TV shows.
But on their own, they can be hard to tell apart. And look, it's no secret that I love a New York skyscraper, but it's hard not to miss the time when the skyline was filled with, I don't know, buildings like that, you know? Wait a minute. That's new.
Let's wind the clock back to a time before any of these buildings existed. In 1850, New York City was going through a major transformation. It was an era defined by Tammany Hall, the New York City police riots, and massive population growth. The number of New Yorkers increased by nearly 60% over the decade. This was the dawn of Fifth Avenue, the now world-renowned Millionaires' Row.
In mid-19th century Manhattan, New Yorkers with money to burn established an elite hub here by building big, lavish mansions. They quite literally laid the foundations for what was to come.
120 years ago, that was a row of mansions heading north from the New York Public Library. They're all gone now. The development of the early 20th century was such that the mansions came down and office buildings went in with ground floor retail. And the very rich people who had mansions on Fifth Avenue moved uptown or to the side streets, or in some cases to apartment buildings. There was the dread influx of commerce, which was considered beneath them at the time.
Packed into those lower floor retail units, the world's plushest brands flooded to set up shop along this revered passage. And so, the modern Fifth Avenue was born. Fast forward to 2023, and this stretch of road was home to the most expensive retail rents anywhere on the planet. You don't get more prime location than this. Fifth Avenue slices through the centre of Manhattan, lining the world's most famous urban green space, Central Park. Just a 5-minute walk away from Grand Central Station, New York City's new darling is the result of a very specific set of conditions. Positioned among a cluster of low-lying landmarked buildings with air rights up for grabs, this prime spot is on the corner of an intersection along the world's fanciest commercial corridor.
It is, of course, an incredibly rare development opportunity, but what's even rarer is that this building is undeniably gorgeous.
Midtown Manhattan is littered with boxy, characterless office towers. Among them, 520 Fifth Avenue's terracotta facade and high-reaching arched windows stand out as a nod to the Beaux-Arts buildings and limestone mansions found here more than a century ago.
Lately, and by lately I mean the past 5 to 10 years, there's been a move back toward masonry skins on skyscrapers. I think it's happened for a couple of reasons. For one thing, people are tired of seeing the same thing because there have been so many glass towers put up. There's a reason that architects call that the international style. And it's because you see it in other cities, and many places. And there's at least a consistency, if not a sameness. And I think people are craving something distinctive. And by people, I mean both people who see them on the street and people who are building them. If you are a corporate CEO commissioning a big tower, you might want something that tells people you're different.
And 520 does just that. In a sea of glass and metal, it definitely stands out from the crowd. I mean, just imagine living in the penthouse of this giant. Waking up every morning to views like that would massively help take my self-care routine to new heights. I'd obviously start my day by lovingly gazing across to the Empire State Building from my balcony. So I'll set the bedroom here, then plonk a nice luxurious bathroom right here so I can keep looking at the Empire State while I brush my teeth. But obviously, I'll need to remember my roots with my very own art gallery dedicated to my favourite skyscrapers back in London so that I don't get homesick. As you can see, it's surprisingly easy to envision all this thanks to our friends at Rayon. Their next-generation CAD platform, Rayon Design, is perfect for any architect designing a stunning tower on 5th, or someone like me who's just daydreaming about living in one. The sky really is the limit when it comes to customization. With a CAD library stacked with more than 50,000 blocks, you can personalize your blueprint to the nth degree with ease. And if you think of something Rayon Design doesn't already have, their AI tool can generate custom CAD blocks in seconds. There's no need to waste precious minutes jumping between multiple programs. Rayon integrates every tool you'll need in one place to streamline your entire process from concept to file design and presentation. To create your own 520 condo or even your own project, you can try Rayon Design for free today. Just scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Just remember when you're there to keep your hands off my penthouse. Now, if you shut your eyes and then open them again, you'll see that I've been transported back to the streets of New York.
One of the things I love about this city is the sense that every stretch of pavement, sidewalk, is filled to the brim with history. And 520 sites is no exception.
Almost 2 centuries ago, this was one of the first dedicated shelters for homeless black children in America. 3 decades later, in 1863, it was burned down during the New York draft riots. Since then, it's been home to an antique shop, an art gallery, and of course, a myriad of office buildings. But creating the tower we see here today took decades. Originally, the site consisted of 3 separate buildings owned by 2 different people. Tull Prop Equities owned 525th, and AB Rosen owned 516 and 518. Seeing the potential value in one larger combined plot, they formed a partnership, meaning they could either develop or sell all 3 sites at once. Plus, Rosen's company, RFR Holding, bought air rights from nearby landmark buildings in 2007, giving any tower constructed on the 520 footprint the freedom to climb sky high. And from that point on, it really is quite a simple story.
I'm kidding, by the way. This is still New York.
Thanks in no small part to the global recession, by 2009, a legal battle had broken out between the partners. Over the decade that followed, 520 Fifth Avenue passed through numerous hands and experienced multiple redesigns, before the original buildings on site were eventually demolished. Construction on the new structure finally began in 2022.
This is less of a unique situation than you might expect. It happens in New York a lot. There's so much money that has to be assembled and so much of a set of machinations to put a site together. Some of these projects take a generation to get off the ground. This one, I wouldn't say this one is comparatively fleet, but I would say that it is less of a ridiculous train wreck than it might seem to someone who hasn't spent a lot of time watching New York developers. This happens, believe it or not. That said, yes, it is remarkable that it would happen on someplace right in the middle of things, that it would take so long to get a building up.
Now, 520 Fifth Avenue might look entirely different to all the other skyscrapers rising in this city right now, but at the same time, it's still a super tall, super slender luxury tower.
Now, where have we seen that before?
520 is home to 100 fancy apartments across 37 floors with 25 floors of office space. There's also retail spaces and a private members club. It kind of goes without saying, but this place is not for the average Joe. Its Beaux-Arts design takes cues from classic New York landmarks. Around the city, you'll still see the remnants of an era that was defined by the 1916 Building Zone Law, the rule which forced developers to step back their buildings, protecting air and light down at street level.
520 is clad in beige terracotta at its base and fluted metal that's designed to look like terracotta as the building rises. You can also see the facade is dominated by these huge arch windows which, toward the upper end of the structure, offer views out across Central and Bryant Parks.
Now, before the wide adoption of glass, limestone and masonry were incredibly popular. 520 is basically harkening back to that era, but with a modern twist.
525th is largely sheathed in terracotta, which is a material we haven't seen a ton of in New York for 80 years, something like that. The particular idiom of this building is that it uses architectural terracotta in sort of simplified forms compared to the old stuff. When you look at the old buildings, probably the archetypal one is the Woolworth building. Gothic cathedral detail, cast in terracotta and glazed, dripping in ornament. This time, the ornament is much simpler and more geometric. It's mostly a series of arches on each floor. They're ribbed, finely. And so you might say it's a contemporary riff on Art Deco, filtered through the modernist era that came after.
Now, 520 might look a bit old school externally, but internally it's still a modern interpretation of a Supertall skyscraper. When the Empire State Building was constructed, crews relied on a structural steel frame which bears the vast majority of the building's weight, and it's coated in beautiful limestone and masonry walls. Meanwhile, the towers of today, including 520, are often built around a reinforced concrete core and concrete slabs, supported by columns made from, you guessed it, yet more concrete. The core is strengthened by shear walls, rebar, and link beams cast from concrete and steel. Belt floors at levels 32 and 52 tie the structural columns together to reduce sway, offer stability to the tower, and provide space for the mechanical equipment. The building then becomes more slender as it rises, creating premium apartment floors. The top of those setbacks create balconies for office workers and well-to-do residents to look out over the concrete jungle. But this plot is pretty tiny. I told you that 520 is a super slender Supertall for a reason. It stands 305 metres above the city, and yet its footprint is around 10,500 square feet. By comparison, the Chrysler building has a footprint more than 3.5 times the size. At street level, 520 is only 85 feet wide, but just as I told you, it rises to 305 metres. That's a lot of building for such a small plot. Its width to height ratio is 1:12.
And this is one of the busiest intersections in Midtown, which meant there was no hope of closing any roads during construction works. The team had a tight site with no place to store materials or set up work.
That meant the construction process had to be meticulously planned, with every swap of a crane carried out with military-like precision. They had to get creative, regularly using hoists to lift materials and limit how long they took up space on the ground, alongside creating a customised shoring system to take up as little room as possible. Material drop-offs to the site were planned to maximise efficiency, and with 6,000 tonnes of rebar, 1,000 tonnes of steel, and nearly 30,000 cubic yards of concrete making up this glossy new tower, there were a lot of deliveries. But it would seem that the undoubted headaches this has caused construction teams might have been worth it. The result looks incredible. 520 really does look the part, and it's great to see New York's architects flexing their creative muscles. But there's an elephant in the room. Luxury apartments, a 4-story members club, boutique offices, the city is building yet another super tall, super slender skyscraper for the mega wealthy.
We have an enormous housing shortage in New York right now, and housing's terribly expensive. Everybody's paying through the nose, killing themselves to stay here. And it is infuriating to watch a building go up, and I'm not saying this particularly about 520, but more generally, that is 1,000 feet high and has only 100 apartments in it. You know, a large percentage of them are bought by billionaires or near billionaires overseas, and it will probably hold value because New York real estate for the past couple of generations has gone up and up and up. So it's a safer bet than buying a lot of stock.
98 of 520's 100 apartments had already been sold by 2025, ranging in price from $1.7 million to over $12 million.
520 is more than just its residential apartments. It's being billed as a vertical city thanks to its mixed-use interior. Now, I've had the privilege of covering projects all over New York, and so many of them talk about a desire to hark back to the city's past, but few of them do it as effectively as 520 Fifth Avenue. Even though it may be a luxury, super tall skyscraper, it shows that in this day and age, New York can still build good buildings. And that is surely something worth celebrating.
This video was sponsored by Rayon Design. Don't forget that if you're a professional architect or interior designer, you can head over to the link below or scan the QR code on screen to check out Rayon Design for free today. And as always guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, make sure you're subscribed to the B1M.